Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Broken Responder Podcast. My name is Richard Burns. I am your host and founder. And this week, I have a pre-written kind of speech that I have for this week. And I hope you'll bear with me and let me do this. Thank you, guys. I think my struggle these last few weeks has been one that troubles me deeply. It started with Charlie Kirk's assassination and then watching the evil comments from people flood social media. How have we gone so far astray from where we once were? And I don't mean that as first responders. I mean that as a society, as people. There have been so many times in our young population as human beings that have set us apart. We endured slavery, racism, assassinations, and cultural shocks to our world. But through all of that, we were able to build dialogue, and through the use of our voices and peaceful demonstrations, we fought for what was right. We did not burn down cities or destroy businesses and steal things or assault people on the street because those on the opposing viewpoints could be reasoned with. Today, those on the opposing side do not want to reason. They do not want to listen. They will assault you verbally, physically, and or kill you because you have a differing opinion. But that's not all. The leading politicians in the nation are calling our first responders, specifically law enforcement, Gestapo and kidnappers and many other disgusting and vile things which are reverberated through media into every household watching the news. So we have this oppositional view on law enforcement specifically for doing the job that we pay them to do. We pay them to arrest criminals in our communities. We pay them to solve crimes. We pay them to protect us from evil while we sleep. But when they do what we pay them to do, they're vilified. I understand that every job in the world has a few bad apples, but when it comes to law enforcement, if one cop is bad or makes a mistake, we're all bad, and that's the absolute worst disservice that the media and politicians have ever done to us, because we don't do that to any other profession. I will say that we in law enforcement are very judgmental of ourselves for actions that other officers take. The only difference between us and the regular citizen is that we want to see all of the evidence before we pass judgment to make sure we do so correctly. If people would understand that and just wait until all of the evidence is revealed, I bet we would see far less violence. Why? Because if a cop can see all of the evidence before them, they'll say that cop is bad if all of that evidence leads to it. They'll call them bad. They'll chastise that person also. They'll also help you to solve the problem to make sure bad apples like that aren't associated with us ever again. But the regular public wants immediate condemnation, and we don't work that way. We have to see all of the proof. We have to see all of that evidence to make a decision. That's what you pay us to do, to go to work, look at the evidence, and arrest bad people. If you wanted to peacefully protest to make sure laws were changed to prevent cops like that, we would gladly protect you to protest that change. But here's the catch. We also protect you when you protest angrily in the streets or need to be separated from the opposing side counter-protesting your viewpoint. But you still hate us, and that's the fundamental problem. How or what can we do to get you to bring your viewpoint from that opposition into a central one where we can have a dialogue? If you don't think law enforcement is being transparent these days, what can we do to change that? We show you the full body camera footage, and instead of understanding what we did to resolve the issue, you lack accountability for your own actions, and you sympathize with criminals. You have citizen accountability committees to hear complaints, but a majority of these committee folks don't take the time to ride along with and see what law enforcement does amazingly well on a daily basis. They don't see how a lot of our first responders deal with paying out of pocket to make sure a child's birthday or Christmas presents get replaced from a burglary or a house fire. They don't show officers putting their own funds together and purchasing a motel room for a family down on their luck during the winter, or bus fare, or a plane ticket for someone in need to get home to the family. They don't show officers holding abused children who haven't bathed in months, who have lice, skin that feels like scales from years of abuse, and trying to comfort the child besides wanting to jump out of their own skin. It won't show you the living conditions that these poor children endured, but they'll definitely say that there was excessive force alleged in the arrest of the abusers and forget what they did to their own children. It doesn't show you the crying tears of rage and loss a mother feels or screams when her teenage child has died in a car crash or a homicide. It doesn't show you friends watching their own friend get murdered, and then those same friends tell you to fuck off and solve it yourself because they're not going to snitch. So, what happens? The friends, family, and loved ones will all say that law enforcement are dragging their feet in the investigation, and they don't know why this is taking so long. It's because the cops have to try and set up interviews, go to hidden locations to interview folks, and gather the appropriate evidence through investigation and search warrants to make sure when we send an arrest warrant to be signed by a judge that we know we're going to get a conviction at your trial. It doesn't show the family members taking advantage of aging and frail family members by abusing them physically and financially. It doesn't show the poor detectives who have had to watch hours of child pornography to get an arrest warrant for doing some absolutely grotesque acts on children. For far too long, we have demonized the folks who wear a badge as those who are evildoers. They're absolutely not. They're your family members, your neighbors, your friends, your kid's sports coach, your child's friends' parents. Being a member of law enforcement doesn't mean that we were bullied in school and now have the ability to bully others. It doesn't mean that we're poorly educated. It doesn't mean that we come from families who put silver spoons in our mouths. I grew up in the old tear-out paper food stamp era. I remember eating commodities. I still despise powdered milk to this day. I know what it's like to come from struggles. I remember my parents arguing about the need to spend $20 to get me a pair of shoes that pay less, because in the late 80s, $20 went a long way. The education, training, and information being provided and trained on is always evolving and changing. It's changing because criminals change the way they commit crimes, and we have to solve how they're doing it and arrest them. It doesn't show them reviewing financial statements and understanding how money was siphoned into other areas to enrich the criminal. It doesn't show solving complex catfishing schemes that take advantage of people, especially the elderly. It's a constant game of cat and mouse, if you will. There are other aspects of law enforcement that require brain power, such as responding to a fatal accident scene and reconstructing the crash based off of evidence to determine within a reasonable amount of estimated speeds that were the actual speeds, perception and reaction time of danger, and if the drivers could have avoided the collision based off of all of that evidence. Our SWAT team members and crisis negotiators go through extensive training to do the best they can to resolve a situation that can be very intense and rapidly unfolding. And despite all of the jokes about the folks on the SWAT teams, they're also intelligent and also trying to resolve situations peacefully. Again, this is where we come to a crossroads because de-escalation and respect are two-way streets. We both have to give and take, and we are definitely trying. Our firefighters and EMTs are amazing people. Firefighters have complex training on how to read fires and how to attack the fire and suppress it and investigate the origin of the fire. They have to train for new chemicals and toxins that are transported in semi-trucks and train cars to understand how to deal with them if they have a crash or a derailment. We send them into burning buildings. We watch them scramble to save people in mangled car wrecks and provide life-saving aid. We watched as countless FDNY firefighters responded and in some cases ran across town and still went into the Twin Towers to rescue citizens. And ultimately, we lost hundreds of firefighters when the Twin Towers fell. Firefighters do this every day knowing the risk that is involved to them. Our EMTs and paramedics are highly trained and have continuing education to stay on top of all the new life-saving measures, as well as new technologies and medications at their disposal for our friends and family members when they transport them to the hospital to hopefully save them from some terrible accident or intentional act. And they do an amazing job on a daily basis. Our dispatchers do amazing work. They answer the phone when you dial 911. They gather as much information as they can while you scream, cry, berate them, and tell them only to send the police. Their resources are getting better and changing. You can now text 911. In some instances, you can live stream through software companies that law enforcement use, and it gets plugged directly into the computers of responding personnel so they can plan better for an appropriate response when they arrive. Our dispatchers hear your cries. They hear your fear. They may also hear your last few moments or words on this earth before you pass away. They have a very tough and thankless job, and a majority of the time, they don't get any closure, because once they hang up the phone with you, they're on to the next person trying to do the same thing for them. It doesn't show you all of these first responders collectively trying to calm someone having a mental health breakdown, or delusions, or voices they're hearing from a mental health disorder, or having issues due to illegal drugs. It doesn't show us talking to that person, trying to understand why they do narcotics. I found that every user of illegal drugs has a story. And during my career, I decided to ask. And what I learned were stories of people who had everything and they got hurt, or they got caught up with being overprescribed pain medication from a car wreck or work injury, only to have it taken away in an instant. And they chose heroin for the pain relief. Or the person that is using drugs to escape mentally from years of abuse. And I'm not a fan of having supervised drug usage facilities, but I'm also a human, and I hear the stories, and I've seen firsthand what happens when users inject drugs into their bodies and then inject into open sores that smell absolutely atrocious. It doesn't show us trying to help them or get them to resources to help them fight addiction and get sober. It doesn't show us interacting with the homeless populations and bringing them food, mobile vaccines, or the agencies who try to help them with portable shower trailers and portable washing machines to help them feel human again with a shower and clean clothes. What I'm getting at here is first responders are also community members who share the same stakes as you do. These folks are driven, and they have a purpose, and that purpose is to keep you safe, even if it's keeping you safe from making worse decisions for yourselves. The media will always show you a specific shot, or crop an image, or alter an image, or just give you a glimpse of a video to make it far worse, or make it look far worse than it ever was or could be. They only do it because clicks and views get them money, and it gets you upset. Our first responders do absolutely amazing work tirelessly day in and day out. Due to the vitriol spread online and through the media about law enforcement, the great candidates we once used to get took different career paths because of what's happening nationally. Most of our first responders are working 8 to 16-hour days because great people are fleeing in droves. Why are they fleeing? Well, because the side that has vilified us have said that they need to confront, attack, and fight back. This only has emboldened people, and they follow officers to their home. They've attacked officers, assaulted them, and killed them. They've attacked family members of law enforcement. They've posted photos of law enforcement and their family for others to see, including their names, addresses, and phone numbers, to be harassed and stalked. These same responders are battling internal politics and so-called leaders who want to make a name for themselves or make the job political instead of practical as it should be. It doesn't show us the stress and strain that it's placed on our families, our spouses, and children who now live in fear for our lives more than ever. It doesn't show the trauma that our family members endure. But here's the oxymoron in all of this. There's zero accountability to call out the person on the other side for their negligent actions and behavior. But when a responder is seriously hurt or killed in the line of duty, you show zero compassion. You protest all of the funerals, or you stand along the procession path. You display vile sayings and pictures, and you make fun of them for showing emotion, or you make fun of a spouse or the deceased responder's family. You make fun of us while we listen to our friend's final radio call. You make fun of us as we shed a tear listening to Amazing Grace on the bagpipes. You act happy when one of us is killed, and this is absolutely disgusting. The difference in us is that we don't do that to you. Despite our differences and your hatred for us, we still treat you with the compassion and respect you should receive despite your anger towards us. To the politicians spewing all of these hateful things about men and women of law enforcement, do you say the same things to the law enforcement officers that are assigned to protect you for your personal protective detail? How do you think they feel, knowing that you despise them so much? How do you address them? Do you tell them it's all just a stunt, it's just fun and political games? Or do you truly feel that way? I would honestly be curious to see and hear from some of those folks inside those realms. What happened to us that our viewpoints are so far from being able to interact in polite conversation without resorting to insults. When we're wrong, we admit to it, and we tell you openly what we're doing to try to correct that situation. But what do? You blame us? You lie to avoid your culpability in criminal actions? I'm going to give you a free clue here. If someone is saying that both sides are doing something, it's always them. It's always the side that says both sides. It's a deflection technique to try and minimize the backlash for their carelessness or their willful disregard. Why is this all important? Because this is the stress and trauma that our first responders go through daily, and it's minimized or ignored. It's being ignored both in and outside of the first responder community. We have the obvious acute trauma from being involved in actions where serious injury or death occurs, and those are absolutely tragic and terrible events, and I can't think of anybody in my career who was ever happy to be in one or wanted that to even happen. I think the real trauma comes from what I would equate to the torture of death by 1,000 cuts. It's the repeated trauma of gory accidents, continuous domestic violence with the same parties, child abuse investigations, and many other things our responders deal with daily. We do the best job we can when these critical events happen and discount the daily assault on basic humanity that we see daily. We're expected to be robotic about it and not allowed to show emotion or anger or disgust for the vile things that we witness. For too long, our responders just box these things up until one day something happens and they either can't do it anymore or they make a mistake that can be deadly or create outrage. We're trained to deal with others in crisis, and somehow we neglect our own in their time of need. We neglect them by not talking to them, not checking on them, or seeing what we can do to help. And when these responders take their lives, somehow we're left puzzled and perplexed at how they could have felt that way. We failed. We failed because we didn't understand sympathy for each other. And why are we failing? Well, I know my wife is a smart woman, and despite my anger for being ignored, she was able to reason with me and explain it that they're also living similar trauma, which I absolutely understand and I can appreciate that. But I can still be disappointed in the lack of basic human decency. Stop attacking your own folks for needing help. The trauma doesn't end with our first responders, though. Our spouses and children also suffer from trauma, secondary or tertiary to what we experience, and that's also a problem. If this is the price that you're asking us to pay for doing this, what price are you honestly willing to pay? Will you come to the table and listen, be heard, and help try to reach a solution or compromise? I would like to think that someone with opposing views would have the same decency and respect to come to the table and talk. Stop spreading hatred, misinformation, and lies about our first responders. There are far too many important people who speak unthinkable things about our responders, yet they enjoy the protection of those same first responders and expect them to protect them. All I'm asking for is that the hate and discontent stop. Our first responders have been neglected for a long time, and they need the absolute best mental health services and support to continue doing what they do so well on a daily basis. I firmly believe that if we had first responder friendly therapists readily available to our agencies, that you would see far less incidents of responders doing dumb things. This is also a call for leaders and organizations to do the right thing and take care of your personnel. You were put there for a reason, to lead and guide people. Quit trying to put your name to pet projects and focus on taking care of the people that you have. Your personnel will help you accomplish your goals if they feel they're supported. Leaders also need to remember they were once the least senior person on the street pushing a patrol car, a fire truck, or an ambulance, or answering the phone. Do you remember what that was like? It was tough. Reading books on leadership and all of that stuff is great, but you should have already had a foundation in fundamental leadership when you took the role of being the boss. Do better for the people that you're serving, or make the admission to yourself and seek other employment opportunities. To my first responders that are currently working, thank you. Thank you for all of your tireless efforts you put in daily to a thankless community. Thank you for still being there to answer the call for help. Please know that you are appreciated. Know that you're loved by your family. Most importantly, I want you to know that there are those of us who know what you endure daily. It's time to address the demons that we battle, internally and externally. We have to take care of ourselves first and foremost before we can take care of others. I want you to know that tomorrow is absolutely better with you in it. I want you to know that your story matters. We can only affect change by being the change that we wish to see in the world. I would love to hear your story because you matter, and our stories are going to change the outcome for future generations. I'll conclude this with some of the lyrics from Hold On by Good Charlotte, and that is, hold on if you feel like letting go. Hold on, it gets better than you know. Don't stop looking, you're one step closer. Don't stop searching, it's not over. Hold on if you feel like letting go. Hold on, it gets better than you know. Thank you, folks. Have a great day.